Okay, so I'm drinking my White House Ale, which is pretty darn good. It's a Friday, so I'm enjoying this. I think this red spot. Noel's heading home from the grocery store, so I gotta stop this midway. I think this red spot could be an eye issue, like what are they saying? It could be glaucoma or something. I hope not. I've noticed my vision has changed over the years because I used to have eagle vision. Now, not so much, but we'll see. Anyhow, you guys don't care about that. Make sure you join the Discord, which is going to be down in the description box below. Someone sent me this question. Hey, Hirsch, do you think that Seattle is creating new millionaires? Before, it was Amazon that created a lot of millionaires in the area, and tech companies have since added to that. Now, do you think that the home prices are creating new millionaires because of their home value? It's a good question. And what they're referring to was Amazon at one point gave a lot of their employees stock, some of their employees stock. And so that stock, when Amazon was starting it out, because they didn't really know like Amazon was going to be what it was. Keep in mind, Amazon started in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Bill Gates moved it to Redmond, Washington. But no one really knew that it was going to be the way that it was. And so it made sense for them to be like, okay, like we're not sure. They made their basic computer, which was these big boxy things, and it really wasn't all that. So then Amazon became huge. And as a result, a lot of their employees became literally millionaires because of the stock. And so this area, ever since then, has been kind of reacting from that. When I say a lot of millionaires, we're talking, well, I forget the number. I don't know if it was 100 or 1,000. I can't remember. I can't remember now, right? I don't know. But yeah, that is a true story. Now, in the region, and when I say region, I'm talking like Canadian border down to a little bit past Tacoma. You have houses that at one point, even here in Tacoma, there were houses that weren't really valued that much. Tacoma was a big renter's market. Most of the homes you saw that were not owned and people living in them were renter homes. Most of the homes that tried to sell couldn't sell. While Seattle was basking in the glow, Tacoma just wasn't really doing much. And so when people say, why is there a huge difference, almost where at one point you could buy two houses here for one house up in Seattle, that's the reason why. Seattle had this steady climb, and they've been a pretty tight market. Hold on. Okay, now that was like 30 minutes. You guys are lucky because for you it's just like split second. For me, that was 30 minutes. Excuse me. Noel came in with a bunch of groceries, so I had to help with that. And we still sanitize groceries. I know people might think that's silly. Check out my shirt, by the way. It's shark, Santa shark, whatever. But yeah, so I know a lot of people think that's silly to do, but we do it, and I'm okay with that if people think we're silly. But we clean it because of the sickness. I still think that people can get the sickness off of surfaces, and people cough and spit and hack and everything else. And maybe it's a waste of time, but I'd rather it be a waste of time than not, right? By the way, I've actually had the flu before and never left an area. So there were times when I've gotten the flu. This was back even before Noel. And the only thing I did was go to the grocery late at night, because I would shop late at night. I know this has nothing to do with the topic. I would shop late at night, and we're talking 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. The grocery store that I lived by was literally across the street. It was 24 hours. It was really nice. It was a really hoity-toity part of town. This is in Indianapolis. And no one was in there. The only people that I came in contact with would be the person checking you out. And I would get my food and I would leave. And that would be my grocery run for the week. And I remember I took that whole week off, yet I got sick. And I was like, dang, I'm sick now and I need to have time off so I can, because I got sick at the end of the week. So I had Monday through whatever off. And then I had gotten sick on that weekend. And so I think it's due to the fact that you touch surfaces, you touch whatever in the store, food items, and then you accidentally touch your face and then bam. Because I literally went nowhere. So yeah, anyway, it's a tangent. So getting back to this person's question, Amazon, yes, they created a lot of millionaires, and so the region grew. Not only did Amazon, other tech companies, and recently, obviously, Amazon has helped. Did I say Amazon or Microsoft? Sorry. Microsoft created a lot of millionaires. Now there's other companies that have done that as well, right? So that's a true statement. Now, the housing market. The housing market in Seattle has created a lot of people who are millionaires just by default, right? They purchase a home. The home is at a certain price point, and it makes them a millionaire. However, when you calculate your net worth, you have to look at how much you have out. So you got to look at your assets and your liabilities. There's a reason why I don't have a bunch of cars and brand spanking new. I could. It's tempting. It's very, very tempting. But I don't do it. And the reason why I don't flex the newest, greatest car is because I know, here at least, basically getting the insurance is going to be expensive. But for two, anytime that you get a tag that you have to put on your car every year, it's going to be ridiculously high because of the simple fact that Sound Transit also takes a big chunk of that. And so they've raised the fees on getting your car tag. So however many vehicles you own, you have to get that. Older vehicles have to go through the emissions test. I think they did away with that. I'm not sure, because keep in mind, when they did the emissions thing, this was back when cars would just belt out tons of crap. Newer cars don't really do that as much. So it's not like, because I remember those old cars. Some of you guys may not, but I was around whenever cars were, kind of like they are now. But some people have those big old 1978s. You know what I mean? Or 70. Or 1960. Things that just be belching like a semi, right? That's what they're talking about. Not many of those exist. There's some people with some clunkers. But anyhow, that also adds into it. And so, me personally, I try to limit the amount of liabilities that I have. I buy low and reap the rewards. Buy a house that I know is going to be low. It may not have the shine and the glimmer and all the vaulted ceilings and all of that, right? It's not gonna have the pretty brick. You know what I mean? You drive through and it's so pristine that there's not even squirrels out. Those are nice. Those neighborhoods are nice. I'm not making fun of people who live in those, but even though you're paying, especially here, you're paying a pretty penny for that, your value of your home is not going to go that high. See what I'm saying? When you buy a house that's really fancy and pretty, the house value here at least is not going to just balloon through the roof like some of the others, because your house is only worth what someone's going to pay for it. Doesn't matter what you do, where you live. That's in a capitalistic society, it's only worth what someone's going to pay for it. So and that's the same thing with business. Like, I went to business school, and unless you have the ability, and that's why Pike Place Market in Seattle is such an icon, is because a lot of independent small businesses started out of there, and the price was cheap to start a business. And so the business owners didn't have to pay a huge amount of money for rent. So their value, their whole net worth, everything escalated because this was a place where people went to shop. It became very eclectic and very popular, and it was a tourist attraction. Now the price has ballooned, like everything in Seattle as far as renting a space there, right? But one of the reasons why we don't have our store in a mall, we were pursued by a mall. to locate our studio, our pottery studio, because pottery studios are pretty rare here and they're sought after because they know people are going to spend some time. And if you're a retail establishment, you want a business where people are spending time. That's why you see a lot of mixed-use buildings or retail spaces that are gunning for restaurants, because unlike a clothing store, people are going to pop in, pop out. They're not going to spend a huge amount of time. If you're eating or if you're doing artwork like that, you're going to spend probably a minimum of 30 minutes and maybe even a maximum of 4 hours. So those types of businesses, if you're a landlord, you want, because it keeps people there longer. And that's the whole goal. The more people you can have there longer, the more likely they're going to meander around and shop at other places. And if you're a landlord, you can raise your prices on rent because you know that all these businesses are kind of coexisting with one another and they're keeping people there for a long time. You become a destination, right? It's classic, right? But if you buy low, or if you rent at a place that's low, in case for a business, the value of your business does not change, typically, right? The value doesn't change. So now my liabilities are low, but my assets and the worth of the business, or in this instance, the worth in the house, is way high. So it's a good thing, right? It's one of those things that I learned in college, is don't go and get the newest, latest, greatest BMW or Mercedes or whatever, and it looks good, but they're basically garbage. New cars are garbage. Any type of car. I mean, when I got this car, it was new. Any car you drive off the lot is basically garbage when it comes to your portfolio. These are facts. They're just going to depreciate, especially if it's just a car that's used to go do personal business, like going to the store, going to work. They're really not worth much. You try to sell that car again, and you're going to be upset with how much they're going to give you, because it's not worth anything, right? A work vehicle, you might get a little bit more because they're going to say it's a work vehicle, but personal vehicle, not really. So I've learned that, right? And I learned that when you get a house, don't go for the most expensive thing. It just does not work out, especially here. Other places you can kind of argue that, because you get a pretty expensive house, the values overall go up, and so that house goes up, and the people who can afford your house are going to be able to go for it, right? Here is a different medley, right? Because the values are so high to begin with. If you were to get a home 3 years ago that was $500,000, first off, most people can't afford a $500,000 home. Second of all, when houses go up by 19% a year like they have in Tacoma, then you can kind of figure out that most people aren't going to be able to afford a home that's sitting at $800,000 when you decide to sell it. It's just logic. Also, those homes, and if you look at Seattle, their value is going up, but it's slow. Here in Tacoma, it's just double what the national average is, because there's so much room to catch up, right? We broke the $400,000 barrier as far as the average home price. It's early fours, 420, something like that. And I don't mean that as a reference. But anyhow, it's somewhere in that range, right? So when you look at Seattle and it's at 7 something, well, heck, the values here just keep going up and up and up and up. So someone who bought a house way back in the day for $80,000 here, and their house is now worth $380,000, guess what? They now have a net worth of greater than $300,000. If you don't count anything else, they have a net worth of $300,000. Whereas up in Seattle, you bought a house for $300,000, and let's say the value of that house, well, that's a bad example, because for $300,000, that's been a while up there. But let's just say you did. Let's say you did, and the house is worth, I don't know, $550,000. You're looking at about $250,000 or so, if that's your worth, right? If you don't count any other issues, if you have a vehicle, you have to add up the liabilities of that, because there's no vehicle's an asset unless it's an antique or it's a classic or something like that. So the vast majority of the cars you see are basically big liabilities unless you own it. So with this car, I own it. I have no debts. No debts. With the business, no loans, no nothing. I did without, because I knew that as soon as you go to someone else and say, hey, give me some money, they own you, right? It's as simple as that. So you may have a really good job and you may be able to afford a really nice house, but really you're so in debt that it doesn't mean much. You see what I'm saying? Like, I look at it this way. You can take a person that makes minimum wage, and if they're doing things right, they probably are doing better than someone who's making $80,000 a year, because it depends on where they live. Because the person that makes $80,000 a year is probably going to get a much more expensive house, much more expensive car, things like that. You take someone who's smart. I know a guy who at 20 something, 28, bought a car dealership because he lived like a scrub. You know, he didn't really go to college. He did, but he didn't last. You know, he did what he had to do, sacrifice, slept on couches, got horrible apartments that had every type of issue you could think of, bed bugs, cockroaches, and saved up all his money, was a workaholic, and by the time he was like 25 or so, bought a car dealership. So, and we're not talking some used car place. We're talking, it's got the companies. And he's hiring people who are double his age, and it's like, wow. But he sacrificed. So that's my point. Like, he had all these minimum wage jobs and then decided, you know what, I'm not worried about being a supervisor. I'm not worried about this or that. You know, give me my little bit of money. He had no responsibilities, no liabilities, no nothing. And literally took all that money, and now he's doing really good. You see what I'm saying? So it's yeah, to answer your question, has, and I can say this, I mean, just, I'm not going to give figures because nobody did this, but as far as like net worth, my net worth has definitely increased quite a bit just in the last few years. Definitely. Like, if you look at where I was 4 years ago versus now, it's not even, you can't even compare it. You see what I'm saying? Like, doing a whole lot better than by far better. So yeah, I think that when you look at the one, you have to play the game. You know what I mean? And some people don't want to really do that. You have to play the game. And if you are a hustler, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but if you're a hustler, then you'll understand, like, hey, you know, I'll take the sacrifice. I'll do the grunt work. You know, I'll be the quiet one in the back working with my head down. But, you know, soon I'm going to own this, I'm going to own that, I'm going to do this. And so you start to accumulate wealth. And what you see up in this region, and when I say Canadian border down a little bit past Tacoma, is you have a lot of people who have bought houses and their houses are no longer underwater. There was a time, even here in Tacoma, homes were underwater, meaning that people owed more than what the house was worth. That took time for those to kind of flip and go the other direction. Some of those homes were just so bad off that no one wanted to buy them anyway. But you're seeing that change. So this area, when I say Tacoma is the best place for you to invest your money, it's me basically saying, like, look, if you want to really and truly increase your net worth, then buy here, buy low. You may be able to afford $700,000. You may be able to get a house in Seattle, no problem. But $700,000 here is a way different thing than $700,000 up in Seattle. And so even though houses here sell for that, there's plenty that do, you're going to be able to get more bang for your buck, and your return is going to, your ROI is going to jump constantly down here as opposed to Seattle. It will still go up, just not as fast, right? Because we're so far behind, we have to catch up. There may come a point where it plateaus and evens out or comes close to Seattle or what have you, but it's got some time to do that. Meanwhile, it's not the city is not slowing down in terms of its development and growth and all of those different types of things and opportunities. So more of those things happen, the more of a asset the area is. So yeah, to answer your question, that is true. There are a lot of people who are, I guess, new millionaires based on the fact that, again, if you have a lot of debts, it doesn't matter. You can have a house that's $1 million, but if you have $1.5 million in debts, then you are not a millionaire, right? You're a debtor. But if you played your cards right, did things a different way, then yeah. And there are a lot of people, some of them are old, some of them are young, who don't realize it. But yeah, there's a lot of people here that would be technically a millionaire on paper based on the fact that if you look at their assets and everything else, it kind of pencils out that way. Anyhow, I hope I answered your question. Make sure you join the Discord down in the description box below. This White House Ale is amazing. This is the last one, unfortunately. I might make a bigger batch for next time. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's got honey in it. It's really, really nice. But anyhow, I was hoping that it was going to last until next year, but that's just funny. I'm going to probably try to make a big batch, and get that started probably in January. We'll see. But anyhow, you don't care. Make sure you join the Discord. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.